You can't run away from who you are.
No, I want to keep going.
You have no choice. Now we are connected.
So today I'm going to be showing you how I brought these shots to life using some very cool compositing tricks and some VFX assets. So stick around to the end of the video and learn one or two things. So my original idea and concept was she jumps out of a portal, then dark cloud forms, then a skull-shaped cloud appears and fires lightning at her. But the idea changed because I wanted whatever was chasing her to come out of its own portal as well. So if I went with my original idea, there wouldn't have been a way for it to emerge since it would be made of clouds. So I went over to Sketchfab and I searched for villain. Several models popped up, but the only one that got my attention was this model made by this guy. I like how it had details including the blade, wings, which I thought would be great to have it coming through the portal, but I later got rid of wings and the blade. Since it didn't come with textures, I started applying rough materials, colors to different body parts just to get the sense of how it would look. And since I didn't know what colors and textures I should give it, I just gave it random colors for different body parts. I also separated some parts that I wanted to have different colors or later add different effects or manipulations to. I then merged some parts that I wanted to be as one, and once I was done, I exported it as FBX and went over to Mixamo to rig it. I placed the points to the corresponding places and waited for the rig to finish. After it was done, I applied an animation just to see how it's working, and it was working out and twerking. Yeah, maybe too much. I searched for floating animation and it looked nothing like what I was looking for. I also searched for flying animation, but there weren't really good flying animations. I also found this animation called Ramaging, which looks like it's firing some powers or maybe pointing, I don't know. Inside of Cinema 4D, I discovered that the animations wasn't going to work for what I needed to do. So I decided to just go simple. I deleted every animation and started animating kind of from scratch, starting with the head, the neck, the shoulders. Even though I'm a very bad animator, I tried my very best to make it feel alive. I kept it really subtle for this shot because sometimes less is more, and overdoing it can easily make it look fake. Another thing that made it look more alive was I applied a displacer and added an FBM noise with animation speed and movement in the X, Y, and Z, which gave it the look like the air is being pushed and moved by the wind, when in reality it's just a noise that is being applied to. I also did a similar thing to the top hair antenna thingies and gave it a movement as well. I then opened up Redshift and created a dome light with an HDRI image which looked close with our location. Then I added the still image as a background so that I use it to match the lightning from the dome light. I added more textures on the front pattern, and on the eyes I added a bee's eye texture that I downloaded. At first I applied every map including displacement, normal, roughness and so on, but the displacement and normal map wasn't working for me, so I turned it off. I also added and keyframed the color shift in the thin film to shift over the course of the animation. It was subtle, but I added it anyway. Now for the simulation, I wanted to have a moving fluffy smoky cloud and add more effects on top later. So I went over to Embergene and I simulated this cloud smoke from one of the presets that Embergene provides. But because I had so many shots and so many effects to work on with a very limited amount of time and deadline, there is no way that I was going to be able to simulate every little thing, even if I could. Which is where today's sponsor comes in, AA Juice. AA Juice is a company that creates some of the slickest, easiest, and honestly most life-saving animation tools and presets for editors, VFX artists, and motion designers. If you have ever wanted Hollywood-level transitions, sound effects, camera shakes, liquid effects, neon streaks, color grading LUTs, all in one click. These are the guys who make it possible. Their tools work perfectly with After Effects, Premiere Pro, and even if you are new, their presets make you feel like a pro instantly. And the best part, right now they're running one of their best sales of the year. I'm talking Black Friday. Massive discounts. This is literally the best time to grab their packs. You can get the full library of transitions, sound effects, motion presets, cartoon effects, liquid elements, everything for a fraction of the usual price. Plus, AAGUIS always gives you freebies. I mean, if you can't afford or you're on a tight budget, you can download some of their free packs and VFX elements and still upgrade your project instantly. The I Want It All bundle is currently 98% off, and if you are to buy each product individually, subscription is 50% off for the first year. Help support the channel if you use my link in the description for your purchase. Big thanks to AAGUIS for sponsoring this video. So now, after I was happy with the animation, I brought it into After Effects. I started building the portal using the AAGUIS packs. I imported the dark energy O4 in the new comp, then pre-composed it and coded dark energy. In the pre-comp, I added the energy sphere O1, then added an ellipse mask on it with a feather, and then brought the opacity down so that I can have it blend with the dark energy. I then added arc lightning 10 inside the comp as well. These lightnings are from Trini Digital Store, which are also part of the AAGUIS bundles. So I added a fast blur and an unmod, a hue and saturation, and the levels to bring it up. The fast blur made it feel like it had depth and like it's illuminating from inside of the clouds. I didn't have to do this though, since there is this storm clouds in the storm clouds pack, and I could have used any of them, but there's just so much assets that sometimes you forget that they're even there. I did end up using some real clouds though, which have a similar effects and look. I brought in my rendered animation of the creature, and I also rendered out a depth map for the animation as well. I brought in the emerging smoke as my cloud background and placed on top of the main render. And when I set the smoke cloud track matte to Luma inverted matte, it creates a cutout inside the clouds. And when I enable the main layer, you can see it on top. The depth map helps with integrating things in between, front or behind the object. In my case, if I play with the level slider, you're able to see the creature integrating well with the clouds. Now the depth map had an issue with black edges because it had no alpha channel. To fix it, I duplicated the main layer, placed it on top of the depth map, and I set it to alpha matte to cut it out. I then pre-composed both of the layers and coded depth. I applied a simple choker and an edge blur, and when I set back the smoke to Luma inverted matte, you can see the black edges are gone. I then brought in my earlier created dark energy comp and duplicated the depth map and repeated the same steps. I went inside the dark energy pre-comp to reduce the blur on the lightning assets whenever I wanted to. Another layer of energy I added was the aura, which already had a form of a human figure. I pre-composed it, and in the pre-comp I duplicated it twice and added masks to the top part. I keyframed the opacity to fade in over time, and instead of appearing on top of the creature, I used the same depth map to set it to the right space. I also applied a Lumetri color and a tint so that I can blend it a bit better because the original color was a little bit too bright. Last thing I applied on my main layer was a tint, a mosaic, and an edge blur. The mosaic just helps it blur and kill off the CG render look. I added a color grade on top, and that finished the shot. The second shot was similar process. I used the same elements and only did some offset and changed the speed so that it looks different. The only detail I added in Cinema 4D was a rim light that I keyframed to have the intensity on and off to have it flicker, and that created more light interaction with the lightning and made it feel more grounded. It did take me a while to animate the hand and the fingers, but I got it after a few tries. The last shot, I knew it needed massive amount of lightning interaction from the lightning, so instead of a light, I added a sphere, parented it to the hand joint, and added an emissive material which I keyframed to go brighter when the hand lifts up. When I rendered out the animation, it looked really slow, so I sped it up in After Effects. I searched for the right lightning assets and found this electric beam at camera, then added it in. I changed it to 3D, then scaled it and rotated it to fit it in the right direction. I added a tritone and an optical glow, playing with the amount, the size, and the highlights only. I also changed the colorize to make it orange. I added the glow effect, changed the radius and glow color to AB, and color A, I changed it to orange as well as color B. Now playing it through, you can see how great it looks and how the light interaction is flickering. Now for this first opening shot, a few things that I was required to do is first erase the lady out of the shot. Erasing someone out of the shot can be as easy as a click of a button. Sometimes it was just a bit quicker to use the clone stamp tool. And after erasing her out of the shot, I tracked the background in Mocha, then attached the clean plate that I created to the tracked data. After that, I had to rotoscope her out of the shot so that the portal can be behind her, including the clean plate and other assets. I then pre-composed her layer and created a round mask on her. Then I keyframed the mask path to shrink down, combined it with the mask expansion. I also keyframed the scale of the roto layer to have her start small then grow as she jumps out. I went to the packs and I grabbed the nebula image and brought it in its own comp and started applying the distortion effects and bulge using the liquify tool and animated distortion. I didn't like the nebula look, so I swapped it with the black hole 5 from the universe pack. I brought it in, and since I swapped in the pre-comp, all the distortion effects applied with it. I did do some tweaking for the bulge amount and keyframed the opacity to have it fade out. Next, I duplicated the clean plate No and pre-composed it with the portal. I then applied the Unmot, then the optical glow plugin from Red Giants. I duplicated the portal layer and called it Portal Bright and changed the blending mode to screen. The original portal, I changed the blending mode back to normal and deleted the optical glow plugin and Unmot. On the Portal Bright layer, I increased the width of the optical glow effect. Then I applied Light Trap effect on the roto layer and chose the portal as the background layer. I then applied an adjustment layer on top of the roto layer and named it Glow Portal. Then applied optical glow and increased the size to have it wrap around her even more. I duplicated the portal layer and moved it down. I changed the blending mode and masked the areas I wanted it to affect and then added a feather on the mask, making it look like a light cast from the portal. I pre-composed everything and only add a few touches remaining like camera shake and more glow on top of everything. I added 2 layers of different lens effects from the lens packs and keyframed the opacity to fade them in and out. Now I tried using the AE Juice camera shake presets, but they didn't work well for me since it was my first time using it and I didn't really know how much to control it. It felt like the options for control and keyframing was a bit limited for me. So I went with the old method of applying the slider control. After applying camera shake, it felt more live and powerful. And with all that, it gave us this. Now, for this sort of gills appearing on the next shot, I found this shark gills image online. I masked out each gill separately so that I could animate the mask path. I keyframed each mask separately from each other with an offset so that it looks like a delayed gills opening movement. I applied the fish gill image underneath the shark gills and I darkened it, which is what was visible underneath when the gills open. I applied several effects and played with different blending modes to just get it to blend and look integrated. At first it was plain and simple, but I wanted to add more. I got the same fish gill image and added it on top of the shark gills to give it a more mysterious look. And since this was done inside of a separate pre-comp, everything tracked well in the main comp. For the displacement waves, I went through many iterations. There are many ways to make these waves, but for me, I added a solid with a fractal tunnel effect on top. There are many settings to change, including changing it to black and white, the fade width, and as well as the twist, the velocity and the rotation. I added another solid on top, created a mask on top of it, and changed the track matte of the layer to alpha matte, which is what masked it. I applied a 50% gray solid below everything, and then changed the colors of the fractal to white and gray so that the displacement isn't very harsh. And that's the layer I used for the displacement map of the waves. Now for the cloth tearing effect, this was a little bit tricky for me because by the time I was reaching on this shot, I was already running out of time and my deadline was hitting and I only remained with a few days. So somehow I had to wrap up this shot and find a way that will make me do everything really fast. So I got this still image of the close-up where she was lying over, and I started taking it into Nano Banana because my first idea was I change every cloth that she's wearing to green and only leaving the top brows that was supposed to burn and disintegrate. And then I was thinking of using Comfy UI to create this sort of cloth ripping effect or cloth tearing effect, but it didn't work out for me because not everything can work with AI, and sometimes AI is kind of unpredictable, and sometimes it won't give you what you're looking for, and sometimes it just doesn't look realistic enough. So my idea was, when I change the rest of the clothes to green, then I can use that as a separate layer inside of Comfy UI and then just prompt it to rip the clothes off. But when I tried it for a few times, it wasn't giving me the correct look. It wasn't giving me the look of the cloth tearing or disintegrating. Even though I tried to tell ChatGPT to give me a detailed prompt of having the cloth disintegrate, it wasn't just working. And I didn't know how else to do it. So what I did was, I took the same image of the separated crop top that she was wearing, and I took it into this website called Tripod 3D, which gave me a 3D model of the cloth. I then imported this cloth inside of Cinema 4D. I reduced the polygon count with the polygon reduction tool, and then applied a cloth tag and started running some cloth tearing effects. And surprisingly, only with a few tries, it kind of gave me the look that I was going for. Even though I didn't go through many changes and many tries, it was good enough for what I was going for, since I was already running out of time. And I rendered this using Octane with actually nothing but the default Octane environment, which kind of looked cloudy like the day that we were shooting, because it was almost sunset and there was no sun anywhere or shadows. So it was almost like this flat overcast look, which didn't actually need me to add any lights in the shot. I went back to Nano Banana and I got a still image of my creature, which had this same costume that I rendered out, and I told Nano Banana to get this same costume design and place it on top of the close-up image. And when I brought this image into Comfy UI, I wanted to have a first frame and the last frame, and maybe if I had used Clean AI, I would have been able to get even a much more better result. But Comfy UI kind of works sometimes as well. Sometimes it may not work for you. Sometimes it may work on the first try, or many tries. So the first image that I put in the first start image is this image that I also got from Nano Banana by telling it to remove the white crop top and only leaving the blue shirt that was inside. I then asked ChatGPT to give me a detailed prompt of the transformation, and at first it didn't work out, but on the second try it gave me this. Now you can see there isn't any cloth tearing effect, but I knew this was good enough for me to use. I then brought everything inside of After Effects and I started trying to integrate the cloth on top of the suit that was merging on the body. Now at first I placed the cloth animation that I rendered out of Cinema 4D on top, and I applied several effects, but it just didn't look really good. It looked really fake and cheap. So I almost gave up on this shot and almost just didn't include it. But the moment I wanted to give up, I had an idea, and I went in the comp and I rotoed the suit out just so it can be kind of like a shell. And after I rotoed it out, I then placed the layer of the cloth underneath the suit, and when I masked out the edges, it kind of looked like the clothes were being sucked inside of the suit, and this gave it a unique look. I added some lightening effects on top and some displacement from the same aura effect energy, and it gave me this look. For the last shot of the eye transformation, I went inside of Mocha and I tracked the eyes, and I created a left and a right no. I then masked out the inside of the eyes to just have it have an open space. And there are a lot of tutorials that show how to create these kind of demon eyes effects. It's kind of the same process. I masked out the highlights from the original eyes and parented them to the left and the right no objects. I then got this lizard image online and I masked it out with an ellipse mask and copied it to the left and the right eye. And then I started trying to fine-tune everything and blend each to make it look like it belongs in the same scene. So I duplicated the image from the still image that I used earlier, and I placed it below, played with the opacity and different blending modes and effects to make it look like the reflections from the eyes. I then got this eye image as well and masked out the pupil, and I blended it on the middle of the eyes, and I played with the opacity, with the colors, and I ended up making it a little bit reddish so that it stands out from the original eye. For the transition from the original eyes to the possessed eyes, I used a solid with a fractal noise, and I played with the scale and then used that solid as an alpha matte for the black eyes. So when the scale animates, it just kind of looks like it's revealing the eyes. I did also play with the opacity at the same time as the scale is happening. The opacity of the solid just fades in, and then it gives it this revealing possessed eyes look. And that's how I brought all these shots to life. For the sound design, I kind of did my own sound. I love doing my own sound design, and it just gives me much more control, and I kind of create how I kind of bring the ideas that I'm having to life, because before I start any project, I kind of know and have an idea of how I want it to sound like when it ends. So I do know how I want the sound, the music to sound like when the entrance for the villain comes in or whatever that is happening on screen. So I hope you enjoyed the process and the breakdown of how we created these shots using these VFX assets, these awesome VFX assets from AEJuice. And once again, if you support this channel by using the link in the description, it will be very helpful to us, and also it will be an advantage to you because there's a massive discount going on right now, and I hope you can take advantage of that as well. So thank you very much for staying to the end, and I'll see you next time with another video.
It's a wrap for today.
We did 4?
Yeah, we did 4 videos. I hope it turns out nice. We'll see.
Yeah, it will be. You are a great actress. You will be a great actress.
Thank you for teaching me.
I just wanted to go a little bit like you can't run away from.
You can't run away from who you are.
That was a deep voice.
Am I okay?
Yeah. Costume, from more costume changes. Tell me you did it. Action.